we're literally wearing the exact same color.
I know.
And hello, everybody. We are back in Toronto for Gerhard Supply TV, episode 9. We're finally back in the air conditioning. Hopefully, a bit more energy than the sweltering heat you last saw us in.
Yeah.
Good to be back, and we got lots to cover. What's top to bottom here for this episode, Lang?
It's a big week. We spent the last 2 in Paris, so we were making some videos there, but while we're away, the deliveries don't stop, so we've actually got a batch of deliveries to cover in today's episode. We'll get right into that. I'll start by saying that we just started our end of season sale. Yeah. So the prices are now ticketed live on the website, first round of markdowns. Yeah, have a look. I would say the first big new arrival that everyone's been talking about, the one that we're most excited about, the one that's been the most anticipated, has been the Amami naturally dyed ELS tees from Wonderlooper.
Yeah.
As demonstrated by yours truly and yours truly.
We helped ourselves to that stock. It took a while to get here.
Yeah.
Tied up in customs.
Step 1 of every delivery is rate it for ourselves. You can't not. So you're wearing the Sharon Bai.
Yeah, Sharon Bai. So these T-shirts, very special release from Wonderlooper. They're hand dyed in the Amami region of Japan, known for its long-standing hand dyeing tradition. Red is accomplished through the Sharon Bai tree, which is this very reddish tree bark. They wood chip that up or soak the fabrics with that. To get this reddish hue, the other hand dye process they are doing is Doro, which is this mud dyeing with iron-rich mud they pull up from the rivers. That accomplishes this very dark charcoaly brown color. And if you mix them both, you get this sort of reddish brown. All of that is actually demonstrated on what Lang is wearing, which is the Shibori version, essentially a tie-dye kind of idea. You see here the pinkish Sharon Bai, the Doro, charcoaly mud, and the combination of the three. The white you're seeing would have just been the natural color of the shirt to begin with.
And to best illustrate the macro pattern, I've gone with a macro size. I normally wear a medium, but this is an XL just because the shirt's got a lot to say, so I'm going to give it a little bit of room to speak.
Yeah, shirt as an outfit.
We'll go a little bit further into the Wonderlooper stuff and maybe even get in close to kind of highlight some textures.
Yeah, here they are. Line up there that I was talking about.
Yeah.
From Sharon Bai, just the wood, to a mix of the wood and mud, this richer brownish red, and then the Doro Max, they call this one, with just maximum mud. And that's what it started from.
Yeah, and we got these replenished. Let's actually put it right into the camera so you can see that. You call it a grittiness. Oh yeah, it looks great on camera.
Yeah, so the real gritty feel to it. Starchiness, that's coming with the mud soaked right in here.
These ones are almost entirely sold out. I think we have 2 left. These ones are same. I think we have 2 left. These ones we've got maybe half of our stock left. If you wanna look like James,
I'm repping the pink.
And weirdly enough, the crazy tie-dye one, we actually have a full size range. So get in there and
you like what you see.
Get in there and remember to size up 3. I mean, did we talk about the customs trouble that we had? I don't think we even got into that.
Yeah, that was a huge headache.
Yeah, so it was crazy. As Behzad lovingly said, Canadian Customs decided to spend some quality time with our shipment. So we were delayed by about a week and a half. Tracking went dark. We were getting no updates. Nobody had any idea where it was.
Phones were off the hook. Everyone, wondering where their order was.
Yeah, and then finally we got a call saying that Canadian Customs was missing a bit of information from the commercial invoice.
Crossing their T's,
they basically just wanted to make sure that it had been made in Japan so that we could qualify for the preferential origin treatment. Japanese imports into Canada, like textile import, if the documentation is completed correctly, then it comes in 100% duty-free. So basically we had to go back and forth with Canadian Customs to essentially prove to them that the T-shirts were of Japanese origin. Speaking of difficulty with customs, a very important date just passed, which was July 1, 2026. That was the day that USMCA went up for, well, it could have been canceled. USMCA is the comprehensive trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. It's the most complex trade agreement that I ever have to deal with. Most of the trade agreements that Canada has, the one with the UK, the one with the European Union, the one with most of the Pacific Rim, you just kind of say that the goods are made in Canada.
No questions asked.
Yeah, they send them in tax and duty free, and maybe they'll follow up with you later for a certificate of origin. The one that the United States has with Canada and Mexico is extremely complicated. They need proof that the yarn is originating in Mexico, Canada, or the United States, that the fabric was woven in Canada, Mexico, the United States, the cutting and sewing was done. No garments are made like this, by the way. It's ridiculous. All of these things are designed to protect some hypothetical North American yarn industry. We used to do most of our business with the United States under what was called the de minimis exemption, which is an Obama era. I guess it was supposed to be a temporary stopgap for the rise of e-commerce. What happened is the US border was basically just getting completely overwhelmed with e-commerce right when it sort of went mainstream 15 years ago. And so they were basically like, whatever, we can't deal with this. Anything under 800 USD to just get everything into the United States using the de minimis exemption.
You know, that was the way we were sending stuff for free.
So now I have had to interface with the USMCA a lot more than I ever had to before in order to keep my US business going. For a while there, we just actually had all trade with the United States suspended at Gerhard while I tried to figure out, you know, what I was legally allowed to do, what I was not allowed to do. So we're kind of slowly opening up again to the US category by category by category. So Viberg boots are actually 100% USMCA compliant. I believe it's the only product we have in store that actually complies with all USMCA origin rules. So we worked very closely with Viberg's shipping department to get all, you know, dot our I's, cross our T's, and get all the paperwork in order. We've done, I don't know, like 12, 13, 14 Viberg shipments now to the United States, and they have all gotten to their destination tax and duty free with no trouble. So we do have that process figured out.
We got a system.
Yes. So the USMCA thing, it's tricky. We're working through it. There's something you can get called a TPL, which is sort of like you petition the government to be allowed to have, you know, it's not by dollar value, it's by meter of fabric. It's kind of ridiculous. So most companies that have clothing that is USMCA compliant that they send to the United States, tax and duty free, let's imagine it has Chinese origin fabric. What they would have done is they would have lobbied the government to be allowed to use maybe 10,000 meters of non-originating fabric, cut and sew it in Canada, and then be able to claim USMCA on it. So if you are the manufacturer of the product, you have access to all of these invoices. It's easy. But as a retailer, it's really weird. Like, what am I going to do? Go get invoices for the yarn, go get invoices from the fabric, go get invoices for the buttons and the zippers, and what, apply them to our 900 SKUs?
Yeah,
like from different designers. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
So I'm trying to figure out whether or not I can extend my USMCA compliance to other products that we have in the store, particularly In Situ, which is our in-house. Which I actually do have all of that information for, because I do buy the fabric.
Cut and sewn here in Toronto.
Yeah, it makes more sense at a business to business kind of level rather than a business to consumer level. Like, honestly, Viberg is high enough value that it sort of makes sense for me to do it. But honestly, every time we ship an American a pair of Vibergs, it's about half an hour worth of paperwork. Like, it's ridiculous.
Doesn't mean we can't do it. And
I'm happy. Don't. It's not like you need to apologize when you place an order.
The previous system was we couldn't do it at all. So we've figured out.
You don't need to apologize, but do know that your order was like was cuddled a little bit. Okay, let's talk about the new arrivals from Viberg, because I would say that's the
Speaking
biggest.
of Viberg,
it's certainly the highest value order that we've
big new
received
arrival,
recently.
and we haven't told you their story. They're
very
Canadian
very
company.
near and dear to our hearts.
Let's get back there.
Viberg. Here we are at our Viberg wall, a brand that is very near and dear to my heart, a personal vice that I've been subscribed to since well before we had a wholesale account with them. They are one of, if not the last great Canadian bootmaker, with a story that's different from a lot of their peers. Viberg got its start, like all the Canadian bootmakers that there used to be many of, making footwear for heavy industry, so mining, forestry. It was designed to protect and be comfortable in all day. Now, in the last 10, 20 years, a lot of the great Canadian bootmakers, including, Dayton, who we used to work with, have either gone out of business or changed, as in they're not making things domestically anymore, or they're not making anything to the same standard anymore. If you want to make something as perfect as Viberg, they're very uncompromising. They They don't work within budget. They make the thing they want, and what it costs is what it costs. If you want to do that, ultimately, you need to eventually pivot away from the sort of CSA work category, because otherwise your customer is going to dry up. Viberg has an interesting story. Brett, who is he's either the grandson or the great-grandson of the original founder, noticed something as the company had a little bit of a hiccup and a struggle maybe like 25 years ago, and noticed that though their sales weren't as strong in the sort of CSA workwear category as they used to be, there was a new category of buyer emerging, notably in Japan. And what they were doing was they were using Viberg's real utilitarian work boots, but they were clearly wearing them in a fashion context because they weren't being sold to like industrial wholesalers. So taking note of the fact that this heritage product, that this sort of industrial product was being used in a fashion context, thought, well, you know, what if we keep all of our like century-old machines, keep all of our century-old techniques? The company was started in 1931. What if we keep this and we apply it to more of a fashionable context, something that you might be able to wear with a suit, or something that fits more into the sort of raw denim world? But you know, the steel-toed, steel-shanked work boots that they used to make, they still have that stuff. But, you know, they've been replacing it with more of a, you know, an offering like leather sole on the ground, something a little bit dressier, to, you know, even like a, you know, a loafer that you could wear with a suit. You know, so they've gone from a real industrial sort of capacity to something that retains their core, retains their history, retains their DNA, but puts them into a modern context. For their sort of price category, I would say they are the dominant name. Another fun fact, Viberg owns the US patent for the service boot. So you cannot legally call a boot a service boot unless you are Viberg. And actually, I guess I'll use that to segue right into my sort of line review. I'll start with the service boot. So as I mentioned, this is a registered trademark. Viberg has the US patent for the service boot. This would have been the World War II Canadian men's standard issue service boot that they make much the same way as they originally did. This is part of Viberg's Icons collection. By icons, that means not here today, gone tomorrow. That means it's something that you can safely expect them to make again every year. If somebody says, I bought a pair of Vibergs, this is the boot they're talking about. They are talking about the 2030 last original service boot made with Horween's Natural Chrome XL. So natural, you know, natural is not a color really, it's the absence of color. This is just the natural color of the leather. And these are, again, this is a perennial classic that we have in stock every year at all times. We have it in natural, we have it in brown, and we have it in black. Again, all of this leather from Chicago. This is a leather called Marine Field Shoe. Marine Field Shoe is interesting. It is essentially, I hope I can illustrate this, the inside of the boot is the outside of this boot. The inside of this boot is the outside of this boot. What is this? It's Natural Chrome XL, but backwards. It is the rough out. And this is, as I was mentioning before about Viberg moving in a dressier direction than they have for the last century. Leather sole on pavement, very sleek appearance. It's the N1 boot, another classic military reference, but something you could easily wear with a suit. Keeping going in a sort of dressy, but referencing their industrial past, we have the 2030 service in chamois. Chamois is a European deer, very shaggy sort of boot. It's unlined, so it almost has like a thick leather sock feel to it. Super comfortable. The engineer boot, a sort of sleeper hit that you don't see every year. This one is in Horween's Natural Cypress on a big chunky Dr. Soul sole. This is part of, Viberg does what's called dealer leather packs. So they are dealer exclusives that you wouldn't find on the Viberg website, but that they give special allocations to dealers. So this one is from a tannery called Mariam in France, and it is horse butt. So you have the Muschio colorway, the Cuoio colorway. Horse is very strong. It's very elastic. You can polish it to a very high shine. You know, recall the iconic shell cordovan. You can polish it to a very high shine, and it's very strong. This is unlined bison. Again, talking about the dressier sort of makeups. You've got the Savoy shoe, leather on the ground. You've got the Bristol loafer, leather on the ground, totally unlined. So very, very soft. What you have basically is you have, it's a rough out as well. So you've got it's not suede, it hasn't been sueded. It's just the rough side of the leather is facing out, the smooth side of the leather is facing in.
Very supple.
Gamey, yeah, really gamey leathers always have that pebbled grain, and they're also very soft and very elastic. These are incredibly comfortable. They're also built on what's called the cantilever last. So something about like pressing down on the toe. There's something about the way the last is shaped that makes your stride very natural. So as you press down on the front, it lifts the back. It puts you into a very natural motion. These are possibly the most comfortable Vibergs I've ever tried on. Anything on the cantilever last, look out for it. This is some boots that we carried forward from the past season. They're in Waxy Commander. It's a leather that, I'm just gonna do this, you know, you put a little scratch in it there and it's very visible. It gets cut in an image of these boots highly patinated. It looks really cool when these boots get thoroughly abused. And then this is in the Latigo, which is essentially a heavily waxed suede. So it looks smooth, but underneath is suede. And as you start to carve through the finish, it gets really shaggy and really hairy. These ones have the Day-Night Club Commando, which Viberg doesn't use very often anymore, but people love.
And a few more new arrivals we wanted to cover here. First of which being our In Situ Oxfords that have arrived. We have 4 new colors in solid blue and a contrasting blue stripe, and along with a solid green and a similarly contrasting green stripe. You may recall us choosing these fabrics from the Shirt Fit factory, which we did a video tour of in episode 4. These are of course cut and sewn here in Toronto, with the fabric being 100% cotton from Portugal, specifically from Somelos, or I should say Somelos. That pronunciation we had corrected while Lang and I were in Paris. We actually ran into a brand run by 2 Portuguese brothers named João and João, who were equally as proud to be carrying Somelos Oxford cotton with their shirts. Point being, Shirt Fit is using the best fabrics for the job, and they're really keen about the smaller details. So you're gonna have nice real mother of pearl buttons, very high SPI, tight stitching, which helps with a straight, no ruffle hem. You're gonna have clean buttonholes, correct carding, fusing in the cuffs. All of this leading to a beautifully made shirt. And yeah, really cool to see this from the selection of fabrics from the factory to here in our hands as a completed shirt. I think they turned out beautifully. And our last new arrivals to cover are from Reigning Champ. We have received their new core program refresh. They are doing all their staples, their hoodies, zip-up, pullover, and their sweatpants in both a slim fit and relaxed regular fit. The whole lineup is going to come in 3 core colors that we're going to be permanently carrying. That is going to just be heather gray, navy, and black. What I'm currently wearing here is their midweight, sort of heavier t-shirt. Then switching over to their lightweight version, just different kind of idea. One more t-shirt as an outfit, one maybe more of an undershirt. And next up here, I have on the black zip-up hoodie. This is the slim fit. It's got the double zipper, meaning it's able to bring up the bottom to make a bit more room when you sit down so it doesn't bunch up. Slim sweatpants here in heather gray, nice and lightweight. Guess I felt like doing a little jig here. And the full jogger with the pullover hoodie, also slim fit. Really makes you want to jog. And lastly, have on the relaxed fit in the crew neck and sweatpants, just to compare to the slim I was trying on. We have this in navy, just a bit more relaxed, different fit. So that whole core refresh is replacing what Reigning Champ calls their Vault line, being their original production made in Canada, in Vancouver. We are the only retailer still carrying it. We have the last of it. And as you can see, all laid out here, it is on a very good clearance as we try to get rid of the last of our sizes. So come on by the shop to take a look and poke through that yourself, or online on our website. Any Reigning Champ stuff indicated with Vault is that older production on sale. And that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm just up here finishing up the editing in our secret upstairs part of the shop. There's a whole kitchen up here where we got the photo studio. Maybe we do a behind the scenes tour someday. Anyways, I'm running the shop solo this weekend. Please come on, stop by, keep me company, keep me busy, and take advantage of the good sale prices and markdowns all going on right now. I hope to see you soon. Cheers.